Hi, it's Laurie Morse. Happy to be back with you in another creative healing conversation. Our topic for today is the five elements, and we're going to go into a little bit of depth on that, although we could talk for days and months on it. So I'll give you as much as I can in our time together. And I also wanted to just do that brief update that we've been doing in these conversations about why creative healing processes are so valuable and vital. There's a couple of reasons, and a couple of the ones I'll toss out today are because it actually helps us bypass our mind. Our mind is like, kind of like a gatekeeper, so to speak. And when we have things that are at an unconscious level, it's often very difficult to get to those. And, if you've done any sort of healing or therapy or any of those kinds of things, you know how hard it is to dig into those deeper layers. And the creative healing process is so brilliant at lovingly and compassionately helping us find those places with ease and grace, and then transforming that very energy into an energy that is more serving to us. And I'll give you some examples when we talk about the five elements in our time together. So, sometimes I say we're designed for magic and miracles. And when we go through creative healing processes, there literally is, magic and miracles in that process, in the very act, in the very process of going through a creative experience. And the reason why is because we tap into that place that we all have. It's innate and inborn, that gives us access to our medicine. It transcends time and space, and it allows for energy to transform. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal on the planet right now, because we're being called, for those of us who have any level of consciousness. Not everyone on the planet is at this place, but if you're listening to this video, you have a level of consciousness where you know that it's time to transform energy that's no longer serving into energy that is not only serving, but has the capacity to be so aligned with divinity that you have you can create more magical manifestations in your life. You can touch more miracle-based transformation and experiences and possibilities. So, and I don't know of a better doorway or portal than the creative healing process. And I feel like I've tried them all. I'm sure I've missed some doorways, but this is a pretty good one. So that's the reason for these creative healing conversations, is to talk about all the the angles, kind of like a hologram, or not a hologram, but like a diamond. There's many facets to it. And so, I want to have conversations around creative healing processes from different facets of the diamond. So in our time together today, we're going to talk about three primary things, which we do in each of these conversations. The first is the point of life as flow, and we'll sort of unpack that here in just a minute. And the second thing we'll be talking about is how to resolve pain. So many people have pain, whether it's mental pain, emotional pain, or physical pain, or even spiritual pain, if someone is aware of that. But a lot of people are in pain. I mean, I think we're one of the cultures that take the most amount of pain medicine, if not the most, culturally. And, that is a wake-up call. Just like pain in our human body, which we'll talk about this, is a message, it's also a message from a broader scope. So culturally, if we are one of, if not the culture on the planet who takes the most pain medication, it's something to consider. And as each one of us transform our own blockages that create pain, then we can shift who we are as a people in a culture that we're currently calling, if you're living in the U.S., the U.S. culture. And this transcends and has ripple effects into all cultures. And so, I like to give myself permission to claim that, to claim a flow of energy in my body that transcends pain, so that not only is my own life transcended and transformed and healed, but that has a ripple effect into the pool of consciousness, the pool of humanity. That means a lot to me, actually. So, and then our third point of conversation today is going to be about the five elements. So let's just start with that one about flow. So all of life is about flow. Anything that is not in flow means we can call it stuck or we can call it stagnant, but the design of life is to be in a constant state of flow. The ocean is in a constant flow of movement, and it's directed by the rhythms of the moon, right? So, and we don't even think or stop to consider, if the moon stopped doing its job, what would happen to the ocean's rhythms, and then what would that mean to us? Because that doesn't happen, because nature is connected to infinite intelligence, so there's just a constant flow. There's so many multiple facets that I mentioned earlier to a creative healing process for the purpose of transforming and creating ourselves to be in alignment with who we're designed to be. There's so many aspects to it, and so I talk about creative healing processes and how fun it is, and it's a great portal, and it's it's a doorway, and there's more grace about this kind of transformation that I've discovered, and it's actually can be more fun. But the purpose of it is to line ourselves up with the creative life force, because the creative life force is in flow. That never stops. We're either disconnected from that or we're in connection with it. And so a creative healing process is designed to put ourselves back into connection with the flow, the creative life force that is in constant flow always, so that we are also in our design and in that same flow. So the source of life is in constant flow. It may not look that way if we're stuck or stagnant in some places in our life, but it is. Our work is to unblock the dam, so to speak, and like any old drain that gets clogged, you find your ways to open the drain so that there's free flow again. What's interesting is that everywhere in life it could be an analogy for our own consideration. So drains clogged are the same as what happens in our own life. And we have this physical body, and then there's these other aspects to our body that are our human system that we might want to call our body, that is more than what the naked eye can see. So there's our mental body, and there's our physical body, and there's our emotional body, and there's our spiritual body, our auric etheric body. And that those bodies need to be open, and it's an entire system actually, and all of that needs to be open and in free flow in order for us to feel like we're centered and grounded and connected to the flow and the stream of the source of all life, and feel like we're doing well, we're thriving, we're vital, we have access to energy, we have access to our heart, and to love, and to abundance, and to expression. All of those things are in our design, and it's not like they're not there for us. We just have to kind of clear the path, so to speak, and release those aspects of our bodies or our life that are stuck. So, and not to be repetitive, but a creative healing process does that. So you'll see when we talk about the 5 elements how far-reaching this could be in your life. So the second point is the resolution of pain. So there's a tenet in the Chinese medical model that says wherever there is pain, there is stagnation. And so then we would say, well, a stagnation of what? Well, it could be a stagnation of lymph, it could be a stagnation of blood, it could be a stagnation of qi, qi being synonymous with life force. It's this stuff that flows in, through, and around our entire being, giving us and animating life in us, pumping our blood and beating our heart and digesting our food. No matter what we're doing, we don't have to think about all of those functions per se. So if there's pain somewhere, that means that there's been a blockage or a stagnation in that particular area. And the idea of acupuncture and herbs is to open up those channels so that there can be free flow again, which ends up bringing blood supply if there's damaged tissue to the area, so that that tissue can repair and heal in the fastest way possible. So flow and and pain have a very intimate relationship, because if there's pain, there's blockage of flow. If you have free flow, there's no pain. So, it's something to really have in consideration, that if there's pain, then something's not flowing, and what do I need to do to create a healthy flow again? The other thing I like talking about on this subject of pain is that because our bodies are intelligent, and they are, and I'm talking about the intelligence of our entire being, not just the intelligence, not just like mental intelligence only. Although our brains are very smart, they have limitations. They're logical tools, and they're designed to solve problems and figure things out. But there's a limitation to what our mind, can do. And most of us have never been taught how to access the intelligence of our entire being, which includes our mind, but it's not limited to just that. Having access to this intelligent field that is us, connected to an even greater field of intelligence, the quantum field, the source of all life, however you want to call that, the universe, the benevolent star systems, whatever. You can use whatever word feels like it lands and settles in your heart and your center as true for you. So where was I with that? Is that we're wildly intelligent, and it's our job to actually tap into that intelligence and that wisdom. And one of the first ways we do that is by being in our body. So I have this breathing process whereby the first step is you drop into your body. The second step is you take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, because that activates a flow of energy in your body. And the third step is you release or relax or soften your entire body as you exhale. You can start playing with that now. I have a whole little mini program on that. But for now, just start making sure that you're attentive and you have your awareness around being in your body. And if you need to, touch a part of your body or wiggle your toes or do a Kegel exercise where you squeeze and release as if you're going to stop the flow of urine, all those things, you can put your hands on your thighs, all those things cause you to have awareness of your body. And then you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. It's important to breathe in through your nose if you can, because there are little hairs or villi on the insides of our nasal passages that actually block out dust and stuff that might be flying in the air that you can't see. And you don't want that in your lungs. That's the whole point of taking a breath in through the nose. And then you can exhale through the mouth, and then practice softening and releasing. I like to call it the unkinking of the hoses, and that will create a better flow in your system. And if you have pain that's greater than just what a breath will give you in terms of opening up the dam, so to speak, then you may need to ask your inner wisdom what would be your best next step for opening up the flow. And one of the things that I've watched in myself and others as I've led creative healing processes over the years is how beautiful the processes open up the flow. So keep that in mind. So let's talk about the 5 elements now. So let's start with water. I mentioned it was water, wood, fire, earth, metal. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one. And there's so much depth and breadth to each of these elements that I can't possibly give that to you on our short time together. I really do recommend, and I'll put that link in the comments below, that you download the gift, the Kickstart, the Creative Healing Kickstart, because at the end of that book, at the end of that electronic book, there's a breakdown of all the 5 elements and a longer list, still not exhaustive, but much more than what we can talk about in our conversation here. There's a longer list of what each of those elements mean. And you'll see yourself in these elements. You'll see, oh, this is an aspect of me that needs either, some healing, or I'm really good at this part in this element. This is a stronger element for me. Most people have a constitutional leaning toward one element. We all have all the aspects of all the elements, but most of us, based on our body type and our, just our sort of our personality and our way of being, we lean more towards one element as a as a constitutional type. And it's kind of fun to know what that is. What that teaches us is how to manage ourselves as that element, if that's our sort of our core foundation. or constitution, then we discover what that is, and we know what the pros and the cons are, or the ways we trip and the ways we become stronger in that as that element constitutionally, then we can navigate ourselves in the world with much greater ease and ultimately much greater health and vitality. So the water element is the element that includes the kidneys, the adrenals, which are two little glands that sit on top of the kidneys, or two little kidney beans in sort of our mid to lower back, and the bladder. So all of the things that are associated with kidney function, and there's a lot in Chinese medicine. There's thyroid health, there's bone health, there's heart health, hair health, and there's thyroid health, and there's reproduction, and there's hormone balance, and teeth, and all of that falls under and of course bladder function. All that falls under the auspices of the water element. And then of course our adrenals are all about maintaining and resolving inflammation in the body. So if the body's having a hard time with inflammation, which a lot of people have, you've probably heard that the core underlying problem in chronic disease is chronic inflammation, and that in part falls upon the adrenals' inability to keep up with inflammation. It's a two-party dance, because we create all extra inflammation and then our body can't keep up, or the adrenals can't keep up with it, because the adrenals secrete the hormone cortisol, and cortisol is like cortisone, like when you go get a cortisone shot. And if there's too much inflammation and not enough cortisol, or our adrenals are tired, so what little inflammation we have, the adrenals can't keep up with it, then it becomes a catch-22, as you might imagine. So that's the water element in short. Really it is, in short. And so it's often thought that our adrenals, our kidneys and adrenals, and that water element is like our battery pack, because that system houses like our tank of chi, our tank of life force that gets sort of sent through the entire system to all of the other organs and elements, and then it's circulated throughout the entire body. And all this is done, based on circadian rhythm in a 24-hour time period. Each organ system has a 2-hour block of time in which there's the most amount of chi available to it, so it can do its functions, and then it leaves to go to another organ system. So it's all very rhythmic, just like it is in nature. The sun, we don't doubt the sun will come up. We may not see it, but we don't doubt the moon will come, will do what it does, create rhythms in the ocean like we talked about earlier. All of that is very systematic and rhythmic, and it's based on circadian rhythms, and we are very much like that in our own body. So much, we can't, I often tell people, try to always remember that you're an extension of nature. So trying to not be part of the natural rhythms is makes it difficult for our body. It's like rowing our boat upstream. So our next element is the wood element, and that's the liver and the gallbladder. And that element is primarily responsible for the smooth flow of chi in the whole body. Of course, the liver is responsible for many other things, detoxification in the Western medical model, but in Chinese medicine, it's primarily responsible for the smooth flow of qi. It rules the tendons and the ligaments. It has a lot to do with creating the menstrual cycle, whether we're a bleeding woman or not anymore. It's still, again, because of the circadian rhythm. It has a lot to do with digestion. It breaks down fat. It's very sensitive to sugar. So that, there's a lot going on. We ask a lot of our livers. Both the adrenals and the livers we ask them to work as hard as, third world country sweatshops. They don't get breaks. They don't get vacations. They're worked to the bone. They hardly have a chance to rest. And so I hate to use that analogy, but we ask that of some of our systems. And I don't know why we have this interesting block in our perception in this Western culture where we don't like to give things rest. We don't like to give our body rest, because it's all about production, and we don't give ourselves the rest that is required. So anyway, I don't want to get too far off the point there, but remember that pain is due to a blockage of flow. So the liver is is very involved when we have pain in the body, because its primary job is the smooth flow of qi. And anytime there's pain, it means there isn't a smooth flow, so there's liver involvement in that. And when I talk about liver, I don't mean there's anything wrong with your liver or your kidneys or any of these organs that we're talking about according to Western medicine. I just mean according to like a Chinese medical model and the multiple functions that these systems are have what they're responsible for in the body. They're putting out an intelligent message that they need some help. They need some monkey to be taken off the back. They need something to be removed out of the regular routine, or they need something added, or they need some sort of a healing support. It's like that. So don't get too concerned that there's something gravely wrong with your organ according to Western medicine. I'm mainly just talking about the broader scope that Chinese elements have and the reach they have in the body. You may or may not know this, but if you're at all familiar with Chinese medicine, there are all these channels on the body. I mean, we have just an entire network or freeway system of channels and pathways in the body. And what makes a point on the foot make a headache go away is because there's a channel connection. So when we talk about these elements and these organs, it includes its channel. So it includes all the places that the channel for that particular element or organ system goes to in the body. So it's a broad scope. It's not just a little tiny gland, sitting in the back. So there's more to it than just that. So that's the wood. And then there's the fire element, and that includes the heart, and literally like our heart and that organ, the small intestine. It also includes what's called the pericardium, which is this thin sheath that surrounds the heart, and it's a protective layer. And the pericardium has a paired organ with it called the sanjiao, the triple warmer, or the triple burner, as it's called in Chinese medicine. And it's basically the middle part of the body. So from the top of where your legs are to your neck, this is the thorax, and it's divided into three: upper, middle, and lower. And that is the triple warmer or the triple burner in Chinese medicine, and they all have different functions. So the fire element includes all of that, and the fire element is responsible for the circulation of blood. That makes sense. The vessels, the veins, all of that is part of the circulatory system, which is under the auspices of the fire element. And then we have the earth system, and this is a really important system, as is the water element, because this is the system that is all about digestion. This is the system that is responsible for receiving food and everything we put in our mouth, drink, and breaking it all down and extracting nutrients and then sending it along into the blood to nourish all of the systems, all of the organs, the brain, the tissue, everything in the body. So some people say that the earth element is the most important element because the two ways we rebuild and renew and repair is by our nutrition, which is why nutrition is really important. We need nutrients in order to feed all these, crevices and folds and obvious places like our brain and our organs in the body. And some people say the water element is more important because that's our battery pack. That's where our chi is, our life force is held. And, there's valid arguments to both. I actually see the value in both of those systems being the most important. I don't need one or the other to be, better. It's not a competition. Both of those systems are really important. So the earth element is also about our self-worth, our self-love, and our capacity to nourish ourselves. So a lot of women are learning their way through this, and food is a big trigger, right? So there's a lot to say about this particular element and this particular system. And I do say a lot about this particular system and element, and I can't do that all that in this conversation, but in my programs and a lot of the work that I do with people has a lot to do with this system because it's a weaker system in a lot of women. Plus we've asked a lot of this digestive system over the years. Some of us have decades under our belt where we've kind of used and abused the digestive system. So we have to be compassionate, forgiving, and kind to it. Give it what it needs, and give it the chance to rebuild itself and renew itself and become stronger, so its function is more strong. So that is the earth element, and the last element is the metal element, and I also include like all of the minerals that are on the planet. So when we say metal, we could say iron, we could say ore, we could say crystals, we could say amethyst, everything that comes from that element in the earth. And this element is about this is the element that we nourish our body through breath. So we take in cosmic life force, whereas we're nourished by Mother Earth by food, and we're nourished by cosmic life force by breath. So those are the two ways in Chinese medicine. I actually think there's a third, and I'll mention that. Those are the two ways in Chinese medicine that we rebuild our health, through nutrition and through breath. And they're vital. And we have to, if we're behind the eight ball in any way in our health, we've got to get those two things on track. And creative healing processes, if you've tried to do that, if you've tried to eat well and you keep tripping and falling, and if you've tried to, have a good breath, remind yourself to breathe deep, and that's part of like a calming meditative thing too, and you keep not being able to like be successful with it, then creative healing processes will help you over that hump, help you get over that hurdle, break through the barrier, so to speak. I was going to say something else about that. Well, hopefully it will come back. So, the life, I know that third thing. So in the Chinese medical model, there's breath and there's nutrition, and those are the two things we renew and rebuild. And I actually think that the third thing are our thoughts, because it's really our thoughts that direct qi. And that is a tenet in Chinese medicine, that qi follows the mind. So we can actually use and be directive with our thoughts to change the way our body uses its qi. And I love that topic. I love teaching on that topic. So that's another conversation, but just kind of fun to know that now, isn't it? Okay, so those are the 5 elements. And I also want to run through 2 more things. And the first thing is each of those elements have an emotion that's most associated with it. And this is all based on frequency, right? So everything has a frequency. Healthy cells have a frequency. Unhealthy cells have a frequency. Cancer cells have a particular frequency. All emotions have a specific frequency. Everything has a frequency, and it's all measurable. So this is all based on science. And so the water element is about fear. So if you have an inordinate amount of fear, then that element is probably weaker than it would like to be. If you don't have a way of sort of corralling your fear, it's normal to have some fear. That's just part of being human. But if fear runs you, and if you have a constant stress response, which is taxing on the adrenals, then this is an element that you really want to work with. And the wood element is about anger. And anger can show up on a spectrum. It can be, resentment. It can be a feeling of feeling bitter. It can be feeling frustrated. There's a spectrum of anger. And, people used to say, a therapist I had 25 years ago said, I feel you have a lot of anger. And I was like indignant. I was like, I do not. I'm not an angry person. Well, he was right. I realized, over the last years that I had buried anger that was keeping me tense. And I'm telling you, that anger wove itself out of me through creative healing processes, and there was nothing else that I could use or access for myself to resolve and untangle and dissolve anger, except for the creative healing processes. So I highly recommend it for that, because our mind tries to protect us, and anger can be a strong emotion. And so going into anger, so to speak, isn't necessarily easy or fun, and the mind doesn't want to do that, and it's not going to ask you to do it. So doing creative healing processes is a very graceful way of transmuting, transforming, and healing anger. So the fire element is all about creativity. The fire. Oh no, sorry. I just gave away one of the fun hints. But anyway, the fire element is about anxiety, actually. So this is our heart. This is where we have, anxiety attacks, and our heart gets to fluttering really fast. So a sense of anxiousness and a sense of an unsettledness is part of the fire element. So if you're someone who tends towards anxiety, then this is an element that you would be wise to work with through creative healing processes. The earth element is about worry. I can't tell you how many women that I've talked to over the years that say, you know, I'm just a worrier. That's just how it is. That's just how I am. I just worry. But what we don't realize is that worry is a learned behavior, a learned pattern, and it steals our chi. And so there are ways to counterbalance that, and there are ways to untangle that worry so that we can actually find our way, find the pathway, so to speak, to a more peaceful, trusting place of being. Because worry, interestingly enough, worry from the earth element feeds anxiety in the heart. And you've probably we've all experienced that. So you probably know how that rolls already. So, and you know, all of these elements, we're talking about all these elements separately, but they all feed each other. So if the wood element's angry, it counteracts the earth element, and it doesn't allow us to have a sense of strength or validity or value or worth. And it depletes our body's capacity to have good digestive function. And then there's worry that shows up because if the earth element is weak, then we automatically worry, and then that causes anxiety, and anxiety makes us feel fearful, and that drains on the water element. And then the metal element, its emotion is about grief or sadness. So sometimes it's very common for people to sort of jockey or teeter-totter back and forth between being pissed and sad, you know, mad and tense and depressed, you know, and all of that energy is just constantly playing a tug of war in our system. And there's ways to sort of smooth that out and untangle all of that. So those are the emotions to watch, to notice which element you might be more need more of your support if you have one of those emotions that you just have a hard time with. And so to recap, and then I'm going to give you some juicy creativity clues. To recap, the point of life is flow, and so is the point of our life, is to be in a flow that isn't constantly becoming stagnant or stuck. Resolving pain has a lot to do with that flow, and pain is an intelligent message. So if we're willing to listen and ask the wisdom of our body by being in our body, what that message is, what is it trying to have us know, rather than resisting the pain and trying to bludgeon it out of ourselves, which is what most of us do in this culture. Truth be told, I listen to that all day long. People, I just want it gone. I'm so pissed. It's been too long. And I mean, the list goes on. I'm sure you've experienced all of that yourself. But that actually just kind of twists the pain up even tighter, because it's a sense of resistance. And if you can find your way to a breath and a way of being with the pain in a way that you're not resisting it, but you're allowing it to gift you the message that it's trying to give you, then you will find your way through the pain. Pain will not be silenced. If you think you've made it go away by a Band-Aid, it will just find a different way to come back if it wasn't resolved at the roots. So, you know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news on that, but pain is a very, very smart message for us. And if we don't ignore it, we will always find gold, silver lining, wisdom, you know, rainbow on the other side, whatever way you want to put that. It has a lot to gift you. So I have resolved multiple pains in my own body: shoulder pain, hip pain, knee pain, wrist pain. I'm still working on the wrist pain, to be quite honest. This is a 30-year thing, and anyway, I'm working on it. But lots of pains in my own system that, you know, for long time I would resist and run around and try to make it go away by all these various different methods. And finally, when I just stopped doing that and took myself through a loving process, it gifted me messages. I'll give you an example. So I had, it was my right shoulder. My right shoulder was, for 2 years, horrible pain. I did PT, I did everything. I did all the things, right? Acupuncture, all the stuff, everything. I mean, I know what the buffet is, right? And then finally one day I was so frustrated, and I just sat down on my bed and I just asked my heart. Truthfully, I did this because I was exhausted from the pain, and I didn't have any more energy to try to beat it out of myself or resist it. So I just said, okay, what would you have me know? What am I missing? What am I not, getting that you're trying to have me know? And very shortly, now the key to this is to not be in resistance. If you're in resistance, you won't be able to hear the message. But if you can sort of calm yourself enough and set resistance aside, then you'll be able to receive the message. And what I heard was, you're at a point where you're ready to evolve the way that your capacity to love to the next level, to love even bigger. And I was like, what? I mean, then the mind is like, what the heck? What are you talking about? This is what my mind did anyway. I was like, I'm a loving person. What does this mean? So there was resistance. And so I thought, okay, I'm just willing to let this message present. And it was the most heartful message I've received of all the message. Well, there's one other one. I'll share that with you another time, having to do with bounty. But that message was really precious. When I look back on that now, I wouldn't trade that 2 years of shoulder pain for anything, because it helped me open my heart and reach into this deep, endless pool of love that I didn't know was there. And that was my next level of evolution and expansion. But I couldn't find my way there, right? So these messages of pain have brilliance in them, and have wisdom, and have intelligence. And truth be told, it's not like we're being punished into the message. It's just that we don't always hear the more subtle messages until they have to get louder and louder. When I realized there's no rush, but I don't have any more time to waste in becoming a more loving person. So, and I'm okay with that now. I'm not sure I would have been when I was sitting on the bed, but anyway, I need to move us along here. I realized I'm talking faster than. Okay, so those, and then the third thing in the recap we talked about were each of the 5 elements. I really, really, really want you to go and download the gift, the Creative Healing Kickstart, because there's several pages in the latter part of that book that really gives you a much broader brushstroke for each of these elements, and it will help you understand yourself even more. So our creativity clue for this week, this creative healing conversation, is each element has something that it really, really needs. And I'm going to tell you what each element needs, and then you can pick the one that you want to sort of foster and nurture throughout the week until we meet in our next conversation. So the water element needs sleep. It needs good sleep. And the wood element needs movement. Remember, the wood element is about the smooth flow of chi. So, people don't say you got to exercise for no reason. It is movement that facilitates a smooth flow of chi. And when we don't move, chi gets stuck. It's as simple as that. When chi gets stuck, we have pain. So it's then some people I know are in a catch-22. They have too much pain to move, but there are ways to just do simple movement that don't cause pain that will help facilitate the movement of chi. And the fire element absolutely needs creativity. You must be willing to foster a relationship with your creative life force, to tap into the flow of life that is aching to be in a non-stuck flow in, through, and around you. And you can do that through creative healing processes. You can do that by creating a relationship with your creative life force. And the earth element needs healthy, nourishing, whole foods from Mother Earth. So even if you eat, meat or dairy, or, there's lots of controversy on all of that, but you have to eat at least 75 to 80% of your food must be plant-based, because that's the food, that's the nourishing, nutritious food that Mother Earth provides for us. Eat it. Eat a lot of it. Try not to, try to eat it in its most whole state, preferably organic. And then the last element, which is metal, and we touched on this, it needs breath, and it needs deep breath. So drop into your body take deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And when you exhale, soften and relax your system so that it can move the chi, the cosmic life force that you just pulled in. All right, so next week's Creative Healing Conversation is about we're going to learn more about how to cultivate abundance in your life through each of those 5 elements. So you're going to create your baseline. You're going to create just a foundational understanding of each of those 5 elements between now and then. And even if you don't read the Kickstart, Creative Healing Kickstart, it's okay. I'll still be able to make it so that you can understand it. But each of those elements influences our capacity to have abundance in our life, abundance and good. And so we're going to talk about that next week. So until then, I wish you creative wholeness, and may your creative life force be closer to you this week than you've ever felt her. And I'll see you next week.